Shock the system.
And welcome to this special edition of the Angrygeeks. I am the host with the most, the man with the plan, the man with the wristbands, Louis Perry. But you guys know that. And with me is Mr. Comic-Con himself, alternate universe, Erik Yacko. Erik,
what's up? How is everyone doing this evening? We have a great show tonight.
Yes, we do. And Erik, you have the distinct honor to introduce our special guest here tonight. And because I don't want to mess up his last name, so I'm going to let you do it. Please.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the one and only Fabian Nicieza. Right? Wrong?
Erik actually breathed a sigh of relief when it came out of his mouth. You saw him like
I better drink a sip of coffee.
Usually the first 5 minutes of any show is me correcting you for mispronouncing my name, but Erik got it right. Way to go.
All right. Woo! I'm sweating over here. It's the lights.
I guess, Fabian, at the next con, I owe you dinner because, yeah, I thought he was going to mess it up.
Yep, there we go.
We're gonna test him. When he comes over to a table, he has to pronounce it without giving him any clues.
Yeah.
Oh, I ain't gonna say his name ever. I just owe him dinner because I really thought you were gonna lose.
It's just not that hard. It's just that you Americans, you fight language so much. It's amazing to me.
The funny thing is, I told Lewis I went to pronounce, like, there's a website there that pronounces names, and I put it in there, and it pronounced it the way I told you, and I'm like,
yeah, they're wrong.
That's right.
Yeah,
I know they're wrong.
I know which one you're talking about. I think I did it for fun a while ago, and I'm like, no, you're wrong. Let me try to fix it for you. But they don't
it ain't happening.
They don't accept me telling them that they're not saying it right.
God,
But then again, guys, look, I've been here since I was 4 years old, so I only lived in Argentina for 4 years. For all I know, my parents were mispronouncing it their entire lives. What do I know? You know?
Well, we're going what you said. We're going what you said.
Oh my God, how messed up would that be?
It would probably be pretty appropriate for the two of them, yeah.
But dear, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Let them go on.
Yep. We got some people popping in here. What's up, Joe, Jim, Chris, Melissa? Hello. Hey.
Yeah. Hey, Fabian. Melissa Myers says hello. We're gonna.
Hello, Melissa.
Myers. Their family. Chris Hebert says, "Hey, what's up, guys?" Jim P says, "Boom, nice guess, guys."
There you go.
Yep. Very cool. Very cool.
So, Juggernaut.
Look, I got a test sample in a box today. Look.
Oh, and look at that. That's how Diamond sent me that book.
Is it really? Look, can you see?
Really?
Wait, let me get it in the camera. There you go. Can you see? Look at that rip. Look at that rip right there. Right there. It was funny, Erik, when I opened the box up just a couple hours ago. I opened the box up and I saw the note with the there's a test in here, and I looked at it. I go, wow, it reminded me almost when I was a kid. We used to go to a place in New Jersey called Englishtown Auction, and the top cover, the top third of a cover would be cut off, and they'd resell it because those were supposed to be returns from the newsstand. So what you were supposed to do is cut off the top third, return the top of the cover to the publisher for newsstand credit, and then throw out or pulp the what was left over. But what was left over was basically an entire comic just missing the top third of the cover. So I must have 100 comics down in my basement, which all have the top third of the cover cut off, because that's how we used to buy them when we had a chance to at Englishtown Auction, at the guy who was illegally, I imagine, selling those things. You know.
Well, you definitely have the pick of the litter there of what you think looks best on the cover.
I do. You know, I got to be honest. This is the first time I've seen the cover, because my comic shop nearby only had the main one. So I bought one copy in the store last week, and it was the main one. I have no clue what Marvel's going to send me, because usually it takes them 6 months to send you copies of your books. So so I have, this is the first time I got to see this as a cover, and naturally it has like the word test scrawled on it, and it has a whole bunch of different marker squiggles on it. So it looks good.
I think they classified that, I'm pretty sure, as the B. That's the Ron Garney City B. The other one has the Black Panther
Oh, you're right.
Top,
this one doesn't have that on it. You're right. It has the Chadwick Boseman thing on top. So and that, I don't even know who did that cover. I got to be honest, guys. I'm at the age and at the time put in that I don't pay that much attention anymore to stuff. So I only knew it was coming out last week about a month ago. I didn't even know when it was rescheduled for after it got pulled because of COVID.
I know everything's all out of whack right now with them catching up with shipping. So
yeah, and you got to understand, from my standpoint, it's really quirky, because it's September 23rd. The first issue's coming out. I started writing the first issue of the series last September, because that's when it was offered to me. I was done with all 5 scripts by January. You know, so we thought we'd be shipping in May originally, which is a little bit of a closer thing. We had a lot more lead time than most monthly comics do nowadays, or even limited series do, just because of the nature of the fact that Ron and I are kind of, I don't know what's the word, professional. We just do the work, and so we were going to be on a good schedule to begin with. But the whole, if you're a retailer and you're worried about Juggernaut missing shipping, I sure as heck don't know how that's going to happen, because all 5 issues are pretty much done.
Awesome.
Color corrections are being done on the 5th issue now, and that's it. So I've rewritten all the scripts based on Ron's art as it was coming in, but that's all kind of in my rearview mirror. So as it's coming out now, it's almost like a fresh experience for me, because some of the stuff I haven't looked at in several months. You know,
is there any chance of this going to be an ongoing series? Because after reading issue 1, it's kind of like a redemption story. I mean, I'm seeing a totally different side of Juggernaut, and I like this Juggernaut so far.
I try to write everything in my entire career. I try to write something that builds up the universe, not something that tears down the universe. So I accepted the assignment because I love the character, and I thought it'd be fun to write him based on where the editor, Jordan White, who's the ex-office editor, when he offered me the book. Mind you, I hadn't written anything for Marvel for like 2 years. Nothing for mainstream comic racks in 2 years. I've done a lot of custom comic work for them, but it's not the kind of thing you see. And he called me out of the blue and offered it to me. And I'm honestly usually incredibly trepidatious if I'm offered something from Marvel or DC. And I actually have said no on several occasions to the things that I've been asked if I wanted to do, because quite frankly, I didn't want to do them. So I just said no. But I like this character so much, and I always have, and I loved the status quo startup point that he's not allowed on the island. He's not allowed on Krakoa. Because he's not a mutant. That was perfect for me, because I had already been seeing what Hickman was doing in the X books, and I thought it was really fascinating. So the thought of the guy who can't go there is a great start. So I jumped into it because it was a fun opportunity. I've written Juggernaut before. I've always liked writing him. My goal was to leave it at a point where, if they wanted to, they can do things with it. Whether it's me doing it or whether it's somebody else doing it, that's up to Marvel. I don't pay that much attention to that stuff anymore. If they ask me, do I want to do more, my questions would be, who's the artist and what's the schedule, because I got other things I'm doing and I have to be mindful of that. So I leave it in a place where someone can pick it up. Whoever that will be, I don't know, but someone can pick it up. And when you see the last page of the 5th issue, you might smile and go, "Huh, that could be interesting." And that was my goal all along. I'm not a huge fan of deconstructionist writers who tear down and leave it to someone else to have to fix. So anytime I'm writing anything, I try to resolve the storyline within the context of whatever the publishing plan is. In this case, a 5-issue miniseries, and I try to set it up for the future.
Awesome. All right, we have a question. Ryan A. Riceit said, "Is the Hulk from the next issue of Juggernaut taking place during the Immortal Hulk run?"
Yes, and it was actually taking place during a specific point, and that was based on when the book was originally supposed to ship. So I don't know for sure. I read the Immortal Hulk, but I read it in trade paperback, so I'm a little behind. I don't know where it syncs up right now. I don't know what issue of Immortal Hulk, whether it kept coming out sooner during COVID or not. I really don't know. All I know is that it absolutely takes place within the context of the Immortal Hulk's continuity.
Awesome.
And recent continuity at that, because we wanted it to tie into things that he's been involved with in his book, and have it dovetail with some of the reasons stuff happens in our book.
Cool.
So when you put together a project like this, okay, so you're going to work on Juggernaut, he's given to you. How was the decision made? Like, I'm going to pull in Ron as an artist, and then this is where the story is going to go from A to Z. Like, what made you pick, like, he's working for Damage Control, and then this artist is going to draw that? How does that all? How do you set all that up?
The editor almost always makes those decisions as far as where kind of right now where it's taking place in continuity, because they know it a lot better than I do for sure, but most freelancers anyway. They know what the company's got planned 6 months from now, 10 months from now, which we don't know. So Jordan offered me the book. He said, "Would you be interested?" I said, "Yeah, you know what? Absolutely. I like that character a lot. I'll give you a pitch." I gave him a 5-issue breakdown, and he really liked it. He was very happy with what I had in mind, and pretty much exactly what you're going to see is what I pitched to him. And I did that maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks after he offered me the book. It was like Labor Day week, the week after Labor Day. I had a lot of really cool things happen in my life that week, and that's why I remember it. It was an interesting week because 3 or 4 things happened at once that week. Juggernaut offer being one of them. So I make the pitch, and I say that I want to have the Hulk guest star. It makes a lot of sense. I'd already read the first trade paperback of the Immortal Hulk at that point. I think I might have. And I really liked Al Ewing's take on it. So I thought it'd be very interesting to see Juggernaut, who's gone up against the Hulk many times. They're both in slightly different places right now, so that would be an interesting thing to do. The catalyst and the impetus for a lot of the things that happen in the series, as far as the present day storyline in the series, is really motivated by D-Cell, the new character we introduced in issue 1. She's really kind of the driving force, no pun intended, behind what Juggernaut does. Mostly because if it were kind of left to him, he'd probably knock down a couple buildings, get a check, buy a 6-pack, sit in his apartment and do nothing. Because honestly, the way I see him right now, he's old. He's been chronically depressed in his life, but he's certainly depressed right now. Because the last time we left him off in Matthew Rosenberg's X-Men run, he was, I think, a member in decent standing of the X-Men. And now he comes out of limbo, and look what's happened, So I needed him to have someone who would push him to do things. I also thought thematically it's very interesting that a guy that's unstoppable doesn't want to move, doesn't want to go forward, doesn't want to try to progress. So what's going to make him do that? And often it's someone else, a voice in his ear, a responsibility. In this case, he feels responsible for her. And we'll see more and more as that goes along. The way I pitched it to Jordan that he really grabbed onto, because he got it immediately, was think of the middle season episodes of Game of Thrones when Arya and the Hound were together. That's kind of the approach I was proposing to.
I get like
Jordan
the Wolverine Jubilee vibe when I was reading it.
Yeah, there's that too. That's good too. I mean, my proposal literally said like Arya and the Hound, because I wanted that kind of a dynamic between them. And all of these storylines, both progress and advance through the course of the series, and they kind of resolve by the end of the series. So by the end of the series, he has found a place and a thing to do. And how whether that continues afterwards, like we discussed before, is not up to me. It's up to the next writer, or the next editor, or whatever. But I did my job. I got paid to do a 5-issue miniseries, and I took them from point A to point B. And each issue is self-contained. So the Immortal Hulk issue is a self-contained story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But it has the ongoing flashbacks we keep seeing of how he got his new armor is part of the ongoing subplot of the miniseries. And what I really tried to do is balance all of it thematically. He's trying to find his place, and meanwhile, we're looking back just in the last few months at how much power means to him, how much having the armor means to him, how he's lost without it in many ways. So while he's trying to find a purpose in life, he's really not questioning enough what the void is in him that makes him need this power. So we're kind of playing with that at the same time. I'm trying to juggle both at the same time through the course of the miniseries.
All right. Now, I don't want to hear no crap from the audience or Erik or even you, sir. But I have not bought a Marvel comic, new one, off the stand in quite some time. As you can see in the back, I do bleed DC, but I did buy this. I fell in love because to me, as I'm reading this and I see the interaction between Juggernaut and D-Cell, I'm like, this is like a redemption story for me. And I'm digging it totally. And when I got to the last page and I saw the preview of what's going to happen of him and the Hulk throwing down, I was like, wow. And I told Erik, because I actually read the book before Erik, and I'm like, spoiler, oh my God, he's going to freaking fight the Hulk. I can't wait for the next issue. I'm hooked. I was totally hooked. I was supposed to be going to my daughter's birthday dinner, and I'm sitting in the car reading the book. But
I'm sure your daughter was thrilled about that. Well, I am glad you like it. It's interesting because I have barely read any DC books in almost 10 years, so we're like almost the opposite. I read very little post New 52 DC. I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff coming out. New 52 really kind of burned my butt on DC for a while.
Yeah. So how'd you hook up with Ron?
I'm sorry, I forgot to even mention that. Because that was a part of the question you asked. I wrote the first 2 issues without knowing who the artist was going to be. It just hadn't been decided yet. Oftentimes they're waiting to see who's available on a contractual basis. They have a whole bunch of people under contract, so they try to go to those people first, et cetera, et cetera. I never knew Ron was going to draw it when I wrote issues 1 and 2. I knew it when I was writing issue 3. So when issue 3 came around, it wasn't that I was changing anything for Ron, because Ron's honestly capable of doing anything. Ron can do
awesome artist.
Big super team stuff. He can do street stuff with Daredevil. He can do magic stuff with Doctor Strange. He can do anything. So what I really tried to do is give him everything. The book has some fantasy stuff, some mystical stuff, some ancient artifact looking stuff. He has to do teenagers. He has to do urban landscapes. He's going to have to do secret headquarters and tech stuff. So I'm making him try to do a little bit of everything because I know he can handle it. And you know, Ron is Ron. I mean, he's been one of the best, most consistent, and yet most evolving artists in mainstream Marvel DC comics in the last 20 years. So I've been watching that maturation since he first broke in, because I was there when he first broke in. And we've known each other for 30 years, and getting to work with him on an extended level like this for several issues was tremendous fun for me. That because you often don't know who the artist is going to be, and sometimes it changes the dynamic of how you approach the work from enthusiasm level. Sometimes there's a difference between a puzzle that you have to solve, meaning a script and a plot, versus an enthusiastic jumping into the scenes you're working on because you know who the artist is and how they're going to handle it, you know? And that when I wrote issues 3, 4, and 5, that I was already at that place knowing Ron was going to be drawing it, I could just jump right in there like that.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool.
We have a question from Jabo McNeil. Hey,
hello, Jabo.
Hey, Fabian, who is your favorite Marvel villain?
That's a tough question. As a writer, probably my favorite villain to write was Baron Zemo, because I think he's just a really fun, fascinating character. As a reader growing up, probably Kang or Doctor Doom were my two favorite as a reader growing up.
Kang's my favorite. Good mention.
But a lot of that is the timing too. It's all a matter of how old we were between what we were reading between the ages of like 12 and 16 or 12 and 18, right? And I was reading Avengers and a lot of FF back then, and so Kang and Doctor Doom are two of my favorite villains. I liked Thanos a lot, but I kind of felt he was one note. But ultimately, because they always presented the most challenging problems for the main characters, Kang and Doctor Doom were two of my favorites.
Okay, cool. There you go. Erik, anything else?
Deadpool. How did that come to light?
Really, 30 years later. Really, no one knows this story. No one. It's never been told.
I mean, for our viewers, for that.
Wow, let's. Yeah, they haven't heard me say it 5,000 times. Rob Liefeld's plot is going to be plotting and penciling a book, New Mutants, instead of just penciling it like he was. His first issue that he plots introduces several new characters. One of them is a mercenary who's hired to take down Cable. And it's Deadpool, and Rob lays out the book, and when I get to the back third of the scripting assignment, we're pretty tight on time, so I think it was a Thursday, and I needed to deliver 7 pages of script by Friday, so I started writing it on the train home on a loose leaf paper because we didn't have laptops back then, and as I'm writing, I just felt like I wanted the villain to have some kind of a voice, something a little other than tough guy mercenary, because I'd already done a lot of tough guy mercenary voices in that book. And for the first issue, I just wanted to mix it up a bit. So I literally just thought to myself, let's make him an ass. That was it. And I tried to make him a little bit of an ass in the first appearance. And the response was tremendous. The response was really good. So Rob was going to bring him back anyway. So the more he brought him back, the more I just tried to make him an ass. And I didn't need to think or worry too much about little details like why don't we ever see him without his mask on? Why did I give him double yellow balloons? Why did I give him like an effect on his word balloons? Why did he go to the Weapon X program, which is where Rob said he got his powers? So I didn't think about that all that much at the time because I didn't need to. But as we were getting closer to Rob leaving to go form Image, and we knew that there was going to be a Deadpool limited series, and we didn't know if he'd be plotting it or not, when he finally said that he wasn't going to be plotting it, I had to start figuring a lot of that stuff out. Why don't we ever see him with a mask, and why did he go to the Weapon X program? So it was because he's horribly disfigured and scarred, and he doesn't have a healing factor because Bob Harris, the editor, didn't want him to have a healing factor like Wolverine's because everyone was getting one back then. It's like you can go into a Walmart and buy a healing factor in 1992. So Bob asked me to call it something else. And I go, we get shot and he heals up. What the hell am I going to call it? So in a script, I called it Perpetual Cellular Regeneration. And I think the letterer, Chris Eliopoulos, goes, I ain't lettering that every month. So ultimately, everybody just started calling it a healing factor anyway. But calling it a perpetual cellular regeneration actually helped me think about it because it's not that he's healing a wound. It's that his body is constantly in flux. Non-stop, every cell dying, restarting, dying, and that's how he heals a wound, but that also affects him psychologically. It also creates the skin condition he has. When I first unmasked him, I unmasked him in the first miniseries, and I even wrote it in the script, and then Bob Harris didn't want it to happen because he never wanted anything solved. He wanted everything pushed into the future. So ultimately, we just ended up spinning our wheels because we could never solve anything. But in the first script for the miniseries, I described his skin as looking like a bowl of writhing worms. So the idea was that it was constantly moving, really, really horrific. My description, I still think, is fantastic to this day, but there's a couple problems there. Number one, an artist can't really draw that all the time because it's incredibly stupid and challenging to draw. And if you were ever to do it as special effects for a movie, it'd be super expensive to do. So ultimately, he just ended up being scabby. But he wasn't supposed to just be scabby. He was supposed to be a monster. And the pitch was always Frankenstein's monster meets Bugs Bunny. So that was kind of the combination that we were starting to go for. But I left Marvel before I got to do more with it. I was supposed to write the second miniseries, and I handed in my 4-issue outline for the whole thing, and the editorial rejected the entire thing back in '95, I think, mid '95. Because they said it was too depressing, and it was, because it was him going back through his origin and how he became this way and why he went to the Weapon X program, why the cancer was killing him, and why he'd be willing to risk his humanity for that. The cancer was going to come back, and then he was going to go after all the scientists from the Weapon X program that did this to him, trying to either find a cure or kill them for having, sold them a bill of goods, right? And every time he reached one of the scientists in the storyline, we were going to flash back to the Weapon X program and all the horrors that happened to him. So Joe Kelly ended up doing a version of that in his annual, and the movie did a version of it in the movie. And my idea was basically, not all that different from either one of theirs in that capacity. The place he went to was a horror show. What happened to him was a horror show. The biological changes to him created mental changes in him. So it was going to all be laid out there, but they didn't want to do it. They thought it'd be better to have a fluffy romance with Siren, a woman 10, 15 years younger than him. That's what they decided to do.
All right.
Very
Have
cool.
another question from Chris Hebert. Other than Ron, favorite artists to work with?
Too many to name, to tell you the truth. Working with Riley Brown right now on Outrage, which is a digital comic from Webtoon, and I've worked with him a lot, and I love working with him. I've had long relationships and good working relationships with Patrick Zerker, Mark Bagley, of course, Marcus Toe on Red Robin. I loved working with. Way back in the day, I loved working with Greg Capullo on X-Force. I thought he was fantastic. I've always loved and have had the privilege of getting a chance to work with often Kevin McGuire, who I think is a phenomenally good artist. I've been really lucky in a 30-year career that I've worked with a lot of great artists. So what always happens is I hear this played, I'll listen to this 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now or whatever, and then I'll kick myself for forgetting someone, because there's too many to mention, because I've written over 1,000 comic books, and I've been really lucky that a vast majority of those comic books were drawn by really talented people.
Okay. Another question from Mr. X, William DeFilippo. I can never say Mr. X's last name, much less.
You can't say Fabian's last name either. So
I know.
DeFilippantonio.
Like
Two P's.
I know.
The two P's are interesting, William. The two P's are throwing me off. Okay, who is my favorite classic Marvel writer? I grew up on Stan Lee and Roy Thomas. So they were always my favorite when I was a real little kid. By the early 70s, though, I started to really fall in love with what Steve Englehart was doing on the Avengers and Captain America, what Jim Starlin was doing on Captain Marvel and then Warlock. I followed Steve Englehart over to DC because he was doing a detective run with Marshall Rogers, and some of his Batman stories were fantastic. So in the mid 70s, Englehart and Starlin kind of flowed into Shooter taking over Avengers. I was always an Avengers guy, so it was always that book for me. And I think Shooter did some fantastic issues of Avengers back in the day. And of course, Chris Claremont writing X-Men, and Chris is Chris was a fantastic writer and really fun and fascinating and different than a lot of the other mainstream writers at the time. Sometimes he wore on me a little bit, so I would give X-Men a rest. And inevitably, because Chris was always doing something interesting and always shaking his status quo up, he would do something that would make me go, hey, what's going on over there? And I'd look at X-Men again and pick up X-Men all over again. And that's honestly a testament to how talented he is and was back then, because the monthly grind is really tough, and it's also very easy to rest on your laurels when you become the #1 book. And I don't think Chris ever really did. I think he always kept trying to find ways to shake up and invigorate the status quo of his comics.
Okay, I think we touched on this in the beginning. Ryan has another question for you. Have you seen all the different variant covers for Juggernaut #1?
I have not. I think I've only seen the main one that's on sale with the close-up of him bursting through the wall, and the Ron Garney one that I'm holding right here. I honestly don't know of any of the others. I have no idea how many they even did. I don't keep track. I really don't. I don't pay that much attention. Sometimes I'll see a piece of artwork and I don't even know it's a cover to a Marvel comic. I think it's a commission that the artist did, you know?
Erik, what do you got?
I got a character that you've never written that you would like to work on.
That's hard that's almost impossible to say, because I've written almost every single main Marvel and DC character. I lucked into getting to work on Trinity, which was a weekly book for DC back in like 2008, and I got to write a whole bunch of characters just because it was a weekly book. The question, I'd rather rephrase it as a character you'd like to do a run on. And for me, that would be at Marvel, it would be Captain America and Doctor Strange. I would love to get a chance to do a run on those, but and this is all with the caveat that I ain't trying. I'm not paying. I'm not trying to do a run on them. But if I were to get a call tomorrow from Marvel saying you want to do 12 issues of Doctor Strange, I would do it in a second, because I had a 12-issue pitch back in 1992 trying to get the book, and I couldn't get it, and the pitch still works really well today. So with Captain America and Doctor Strange are my two at Marvel. At DC, my two would probably be, again, with the caveat that I would write Tim Drake and as Red Robin for 50 years if I could. It would be Nightwing and Hawkman. Those are two characters I'd really love a chance to do a run on. Nightwing, especially because Dick Grayson's my favorite character in comics. And he has been since I came to this country, and the Batman TV show was one of the first things we saw.
All right. Speaking of Hawkman, how do you feel about the casting?
As far as I know, it's not official casting yet, is it? I don't know. I assume everything's a rumor until I see it announced in Variety or Hollywood Reporter.
All right.
I think he's a really good actor. So I don't care. I mean, I'm not. It's funny. I absolutely have opinions on cross casting different genders or different races, but it's almost all based on the individual character involved and my emotional connection to how I see that character. When if they're casting this actor as Hawkman, I think he's a fantastic choice. I think he's great. I think he would do a great Hawkman. But if you were telling me you were casting him as Peter Parker, I probably wouldn't be happy with that, because I don't think he'd be right for Peter Parker. You know what I mean? So I think he's really good, and I just hope that he's not in a Black Adam movie just to get his ass handed to him by Black Adam and nothing else. You know, because it's The Rock, right? Isn't The Rock starring as Black Adam?
Yeah.
The Rock always wants to be the hero of his own story, even when he's playing the villain. So we'll see what happens.
That's my thing. I mean, I'm digging the cast. If it is confirmed, I'm digging it. He did tweet that he was Hawkman.
Okay, good. Good.
I'm a huge Hawkman fan.
Look, to me, the character of Hawkman has to have weight, period. He has to have emotional weight. He has to have historical weight. He has to have the weight of time as a burden on his back. And this is an actor who can absolutely do that. Yeah. And he's tough as hell when he wants to be. So that's to me all I need out of Hawkman. And I think that he can do it. That, of course, being with the caveat, again, that DC's got a lot of work often to do with me to make me enjoy their movies. So let's see what happens with this. Let's see what happens with
another
this.
question. J-Bo wants to know, what was your favorite hero to write?
On an ongoing basis, my favorite character to write has been Deadpool, mostly because it is a wonderful flushing of all the stuff in my brain that would normally get filtered. So all of us have a filter in our brains, or we should have a filter in our brains where things get stuck before they come out of our mouth, and our brains start to accumulate the gunk of that, almost like a bathroom sink, a toilet sink or something, right? Deadpool allows me to just flush all that out without any worries whatsoever about my standing in society, and I get paid to do it. So it makes it fun to write. But whenever I get a chance to write Captain America, and I've also been lucky enough to get to write him a few times, whenever I get the chance to write Cap, I love it because I love writing the responsibility of that character.
Okay. Mark May wants to know, speaking of villains, why did you eat my sushi in Arkansas?
I don't remember eating your sushi in Arkansas, Mark. I don't think I would ever have the courage to eat sushi in Arkansas. So I can only imagine that you're lying. And I also hope your health has been good, because I saw you posting that you were having some health issues. So I hope you're doing okay. But I'm not a villain. Only villains would actually eat sushi in Arkansas.
Even if they told on someone for taking 2 meals?
I don't remember that either.
Okay.
I'm like Donald Trump. I don't remember anything. So clearly it must not have happened if I don't remember it.
And Mike says can't be any worse than Hawkman from Smallville.
Was Hawkman in Smallville?
Yes, Hawkman was in Smallville.
I know he was in Legends for the first season, but was he in Smallville?
Yes, he was.
God, I don't even remember. That was too long ago.
Forgettable. I can't remember that.
Yeah, I'll send you both the link.
No, I might have gotten rid of them. I had all the Smallville DVD box sets, but I might have gotten rid of them when I moved. I moved a few years ago, so I downsized a lot of my stuff.
Yeah, he was when they had the JSA in.
Wow,
Smallville.
that probably was kind of scary based on what that show did with a lot of the characters. Okay.
And Mark says he loves you, Fabian.
I love you too, Mark.
We had Mark on with Jamie Dolan and I last week, and he told us the story of the sushi.
I don't remember the story of the sushi. Mark has to understand that I was going to 10 to 12 conventions a year, so my brain is completely addled as to what happened at what show. I just don't remember anything anymore. And Arkansas was like 3 years ago, I think. So forget about it. My brain's I'm never going to remember that, no matter what.
Well, I just hope we can get back to going to shows, because it's crazy lately.
I miss them a lot. I was almost like the president's plane taking off at Independence Day before the White House blew up. I had to go to La Mole in Mexico City in March, and I didn't want to miss it. And it was just as the COVID was starting to spread in Northeast, and people were starting to get a little antsy about it, like the second week of March. So I went there, and everything went fine, but I didn't shake hands, and I normally do shake hands, but I didn't shake hands, and I came home, and I was fine. Everything was fine, and then I find out someone I was at the convention with tested positive like 3 days later.
Oh,
and I was like, holy crap. But she actually thinks she contracted it at LAX on her way home from Mexico City. So I literally got home that Monday from the convention, took the train to my house here in Jersey, and that's when my quarantine started, that Monday. So it was like really weird. So I definitely miss shows, and I look forward, hopefully, to the day we can have them again. But
yeah,
I got to be honest with you, the days of me shaking fans' hands and taking pictures with their faces right next to mine, that may be over, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a strange time coming up. I'm telling you. I don't know how they're going to do it.
We'll get there. It may take some time, but I think we're going to get there. I think if if this country wasn't this country, we would have already found a better path towards getting there than we have. But I really think that mask to mask makes all the difference in the world and makes a huge difference in our ability to start doing more and more. But until we get mask to mask, it's not going to happen. So I hope that we can get there. I think if people are waiting on a vaccine that is 100% effective, I think then we're in trouble, because then we're not going to be doing all the other things we can be doing. And I would love to. I'm gonna, what do we got? Wasn't like New York Comic Con a week from now originally, or 2 weeks from now? New York Comic Con's like a huge show. It's an absolute exhaustion for me physically. But I love doing it because I see so many people. I do really well at the show. I wanted to pimp my stuff this year because I had a lot of stuff coming out and coming up that I wanted to promote. So I'm missing out on that opportunity, just like every other show I do, because I was doing.
Well, definitely promote it tonight while you're here. Let the fans know.
Oh, we'll get to it.
What was the most oddest request that you did have from a fan at a convention? Like
just signing body parts usually.
Really?
It's usually body parts, yeah. Or signing the most, but within that context, I guess now that I think of it, the oddest is when they ask me to sign on their arm or something, and they're going to make a tattoo of it. So a guy comes up to me with a really nice Deadpool tattoo on a shoulder or something like that, and he asks me to sign around it or under it with my autograph, and then he tells me he's going to get that tattooed. So he needs it as his template in order to go get it tattooed. One guy went and got it tattooed on a Saturday and came back on a Sunday and showed it to me. And I've done this a few times. This isn't. It's not like only once I've done it. And the whole mentality that goes into tattooing is one thing, much less the mentality that goes into tattooing 80% of your 90% of your whole body. I don't have that mentality, but I'm always curious about it. I find it fascinating. Even within the context of wanting your whole body to be a work of art, the thought of wanting my name on you is just completely unfathomable to me. It is something that no matter how you might explain it to me, I'm not going to get it. I'm going to think you're just a moron, right? And if I think that for wanting my name on you, can you imagine what my wife must think? That he wants my name on him. It's like, it's crazy. But I mean, I've signed breasts, I've signed asses, I've signed arms and legs and stuff like that. All good, all fun.
All fun. Hey, they're the fans. That's what they like.
So what do you have to pimp?
All right. After tremendous
Erik and me.
After tremendous delays, Outrage Season 2 will probably be launching by the end of October, early November. Outrage is a digital comic I do on Webtoon. It's creator-owned with Riley Brown. The first season ran from September 18 until February 19. It took many months to renegotiate a contract for Season 2. Then it's taken many months to draw it, get it done, because COVID screwed up a lot of artists' lives. Go figure, artists are challenged when their children are home. Go figure. And I don't have kids at home like that I have to worry about, so it is not an issue for me. So hopefully that'll launch October, November. Webtoon is a free platform. It's got a fast pass program you can pay to get advanced looks at chapters, but it's a free platform, and you can go to webtoon.com and read the entire first season of Outrage, which was 26 chapters, which is roughly the equivalent of 140 pages, 150 pages of a comic book material. It's a vertical scroll, so this is me scrolling vertically. It's a vertical scroll, not a horizontal scroll. Webtoon's one of the biggest digital comics producers in the globe. And I'm sorry to say that to comic shop owners, but digital comics are a great source, especially for audiences that don't go into comic shops, and quite frankly, an audience that many comic shops don't want coming in as far as customers are concerned, because the majority of Webtoon is teenage girls. So I got a couple 100,000 teenage girls reading Outrage right now, which is really cool. Outrage is a character that comes out of your device, whether it's a phone or a laptop or an iPad. He emerges out of your device and he smacks the crap out of you if you're being an ass on social media. And it sounds like fun until he starts smacking too many people higher up the ladder. And then all of a sudden, the powers that be want to find out what this thing is, how this thing was made, what's going on. So the first half of the season 1 is who is Outrage, and we reveal that halfway through. The second half is why is Outrage? Why does this thing exist? Why are we the way we are? And then it extrapolates further in season 2, where people start to decide Outrage is someone worth mimicking. He deserves to be copied, but they take it to extremes. So, there's going to be Klan guys who dress up as Outrages, and there's going to be neo-Nazis dressing up as Outrage. And all of a sudden, they're taking it out into the real world, saying that we need to express all of our angers this way. So there's a lot of social commentary in there, but it's all mixed in with a tremendous amount of humor and a lot of fun. And a lot of fun, goofy stuff as well. So it's kind of Deadpool-ish, but it's really not Deadpool. But it's got a lot of those same kind of exaggerated and unexpected verbal diatribes. So I enjoy doing it in that regard.
Cool.
And for me, the biggest news in my life for the last year has been that late last year I sold my first novel, and it's a
congratulations.
Thank you. I call it a sarcastic suburban mystery. The book is called Suburban Dicks, and it is a mystery featuring a 33-year-old woman who is pregnant with her 5th child, who should have been an FBI profiler, but becoming pregnant with her first child prevented her from going to Quantico like she should have. And a reporter who won a Pulitzer Prize while he was in college, and his story broke and tore down the administration of the New Jersey governor. Now, 10 years later, he's working for a weekly newspaper. And they both knew each other when they were younger because she used to date his older brother. And a gas station attendant gets killed in their town, and the two of them start investigating it and start working together to find out why this gas station attendant was killed, and why does it look like it's tied into a possible murder that's 50 years old that the police and the township administrators may want to keep covered up. So I wrote the book from 2017 to 2018. I rewrote it through much of 2019 based on a lot of feedback and advice. I secured an agent officially the first week of September, like I mentioned earlier, when good things happened. The agent asked me, asked to represent the book. We took it out in November. We had 5 publishers interested in it, which totally shocked me, amazed me. And we decided after an auction to go with Penguin Putnam. Penguin Random House is the largest publisher in the world, and Putnam is one of their imprints. When I first got out of college in 1983, I worked for Putnam Berkeley Publishing, and I worked there for 2 years before I started a job at Marvel. So in some kooky way, it felt like coming home again. One of the senior executive editors at Berkeley Publishing that does the paperback books is a guy who I worked with 30 years ago, 40 years ago. God, it's almost been 40 years. So the first book will be coming out sometime late spring, early summer, so June, July. It's not nailed down yet. This is the cover of the book.
Netflix, if you're watching.
It will probably have a couple little tweaks on it, but this is what the book is going to look like. And
Very cool.
It was a 2-book contract, so I am working on the sequel right now. It's a completely different mystery that they're trying to solve, and that book will come out in 2022. So because we had an auction go on for it, it turned into a 2-book deal because the last 2 guys left standing were trying to up the ante, and they didn't want to up the ante money-wise, so they ended up making it a 2-book deal, which I thought was great because I love doing this. It took me many years to feel confident writing prose because I've had this book idea since 1993. The characters, the story, the beginning, the middle, the end, and the title since 1993. And I finally wrote it and felt comfortable doing it just in the last couple of years. So I'm working on the second book now in between some comic stuff, or actually the comic stuff just sort of is a head break from the book for a day or two. But my main job right now is working on the second book. And as far as Netflix is concerned, who knows? We may have something to announce before the end of the year in that regard too.
Well, then we have to have
very,
you back
very
on.
cool. Yeah.
Yes, well,
We
definitely
should promote all that too for you.
There was the book manuscript went out to TV producers before Putnam had even purchased it, because the agency really liked the manuscript and wanted to get TV interest. So we had multiple producers who were actually interested in doing it for TV. So it's been more a matter of finagling the contracts in a COVID era where everything is taking even longer than it usually takes, and contracts usually take forever. So we are absolutely in discussions for TV, a TV option at the very least on the book manuscript. Whether they decide to make it a show or not, you never know for sure. What you're doing is you're selling an option, and then they decide if they want to kick that option in by green lighting a show.
So
let's keep the fingers crossed that they do, because it sounds interesting.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's really well made. It really is very comfortably conducive to a TV show. It's not a procedural. It would be more of probably a 30-minute type show. 10 episodes that covers pretty much the whole book. It's a 360-page book, so you break that down into 10 35-minute episodes. There you are, So we'll see what happens. It would be fun. I think it would work pretty well on TV. It's a very diverse book. That's part of its theme, is the diversity in it. That's part of the mystery, that the diversity is what causes some of the issues. And it's very reflective of the suburban area that I live in.
All right. We have another quick question for you from Mike. Mike wants to know, do you find it more or less difficult to write as though you are painting the whole picture with your words, rather than having an artist providing visualizations of your writing?
That is an excellent question. And my truth, and I can't say this for every writer, because this is my first book I sold, and it's the first book I ever finished. I'd started a few, but I never finished them because I was never happy with them. The first book I should have had published was, believe it or not, 20 years ago, a Gambit novel.
Really?
Because I was contracted to write a Gambit novel for Byron Preiss Books, who had a licensing deal with Marvel. I was 275 pages into the manuscript when Marvel pulled the plug on the license with Byron Preiss. So my book, along with like 4 or 5 others that were in progress, all got killed. So 275 pages of a Gambit manuscript exist. I haven't looked at it in 20 years. I don't think I would want to now. But that I would have finished that book, mostly because I had a contractual obligation to do it. And the outline had been approved. So I knew that my beginning, my middle, and end had been approved. So I need to know my destination. I need to know where I'm going. I need to know I'm driving from New York to LA, and it's okay that I'm going to take some off-road pit stops just to see the big ball of twine or steal sushi from Mark in Arkansas. But I need to know that I got to get back on the road that gets me to LA, right? So this book I was able to write because I got confident enough in prose writing as I went along. I got good response from several people I showed it to, which made a difference. But to answer the question, it's because I didn't try to visualize everything in words that I became a better prose writer. Because one of my problems in writing prose is that I thought I had to visualize everything in words. And the truth of the matter is you really don't. And the truth of the matter is most successful popular fiction, and I am nothing if not a populist. I'm not going to win writing awards because I'm not that kind of writer. But the kind of writing I do is meant to entertain. So the books of that nature don't spend a lot of time describing things in detail that we can all visualize ourselves in our own imagination. I don't need the exacting description of a living room to understand what a living room is. You know, what most books, and this is not me researching, guys, and it's not me guessing, it's me being told this by editors in the industry and by agents in the industry. That what I cut a lot out of my manuscript, and a lot of it was excessive verbiage that I didn't need. So I was very happy in that regard to find that middle place between thinking you needed to write everything on the page and allowing the audience to see it in their own imaginations. You know, so I'm so much more comfortable now writing the second book that my first manuscript for my first book was 540 pages. The final copy edited manuscript was 370. Okay, so I chopped out almost 200 pages from this thing, and a lot of it was my own mistakes, my own learning experiences, understanding that you don't need to, just because the reader knows something and a character knows something, then next time that character talks to someone else about it who doesn't know it, you don't need to relate the whole thing again, because that the reader already knows it. So you need to summarize that by jumping through it, around it quickly, because the reader already knows it. So you get that new character up to speed on what the first character found out about. So it was a lot of that kind of repetition. It was a lot of excessive verbiage and sentences. Everything became leaner and cleaner as a result, and easier to read, and more relaxing to read. So now that I'm writing the second one, I think I'm going to come in right around 350 to 360 with my first draft of my manuscript, which means hopefully I won't have that much rewriting to do, and I won't be able to cut that much because I kept it lean to begin with, you know? And that's just learning. That's just a part of the learning experience. It's part of the process of figuring things out and trying not to make the same mistake twice.
Okay. What are you reading today? Now, I know you said you're reading Immortal Hulk with the trade paperbacks.
Ironically enough, yes, I'm reading an Immortal Hulk trade paperback on my iPad. The one with Zemnu the Titan on the cover, the Alex Ross painting, the old original Hulk character. He was called way back when, the gorilla with the white stuff. Mm-hmm. That's the one I'm reading right now. I tend to read on my iPad more than anything right now. I tend to read something new and something old at the same time. And so I'm reading the Immortal Hulk trade paperback, and I'm reading a Golden Age Marvel Mystery Comics volume 3 or 4 Marvel Masterworks. Those are the two things on my nightstand. I can't read fiction while I'm writing a book, I have found. I tried that when I was writing the first book, and it really threw me off. I don't want to read what anyone else is writing in a fictional standpoint. And lately, because I've had a lot of work, it's more of a challenge for me to read nonfiction, which is what I like to do. I like to read nonfiction, but it's hard for me to focus on it. When I'm doing 2 or 3 projects at once, it makes it hard for me to go to sleep at night and focus and concentrate on something like historical. You know, I tried reading an Aaron Burr book, and it was really hard. I tried reading an Alexander Hamilton book. I wanted to read them back to back. I couldn't get through either one of them. It was just too thick for me. So what I'm trying to do is create a list of things I will write or I will read when I am dead. So once I pass, I hope to read a whole bunch of stuff because I'll have the time to relax and enjoy it.
All right. Fabian, our time is just about up. Do you want to tell everyone where they can follow you on social media?
Mostly on Twitter, which is at Fabian Nicieza. Be aware that there are some politics mixed in. Sorry, tough luck. And also Fabian Nicieza on Facebook. Feel free to friend me, and I'll just add you to the 1,000 people on the waiting list that I can never call. My 2 kids offered multiple times over the last few years to create a Facebook fan page for me, and I just nod my head and go, yeah, okay, sure, and I never do it. So unfortunately, you can follow me on Facebook as well. I'm on Instagram at fnicieza, but I'm barely ever on Instagram. So the best immediate reply and response with me is either Facebook threads or especially Twitter.
All right. Erik.
Squeeze in Steven's question there. I think that's the last one there. You want?
Oh, Steven gets in with the last question.
Yeah.
Steven, are you reading Stephen Gay? Are you reading the current Deadpool run? If so, your thoughts?
My thoughts are that I'm not reading the current Deadpool run. I don't read Deadpool if I'm not writing Deadpool. Simple as that. I've only read a few issues of Jerry Dugan's work, and I know him and Brian Posehn did a lot of really good stuff with Deadpool, but the answer is no. I barely read any Deadpool at all between the time I left Marvel in the mid-'90s until I wrote Cable and Deadpool in 2004. I wrote the first 4 or 5 scripts of Cable and Deadpool before I would even go back and look at the Joe Kelly run, because I wanted the character to be what was in my mind without any other influences. And then I went back and read the Joe Kelly run. I go, oh crap, that was good. Son of a bitch. See, here's the deal. And it's a simple thing to understand. If I like it, I'm angry that it's better than what I would write. And if I don't like it, I'm angry that I'm not writing it. So why bother reading it? Because either way, I'm not going to win.
There you have it.
Yep.
Erik, please tell everyone where they can find you.
At Alternate Universe CT, Milford and New Haven, Connecticut, Alternate Universe. Come on down, bring your shekels, buy some comic books, and get entertained.
And I am Louis Perry. You can find me every week right here on the Earplug Podcast Network, the Angry Geek Show, featuring myself, Jamie Dolan, and Ali Montgomery. And every Wednesday night with Jack Purcell on the Faces of Heels podcast, and every Friday on Today with DW. Thanks for tuning in, and I want to thank Fabian.
Yes, thank you, Fabian. Awesome. Thank you.
An awesome show, and thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you guys soon.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation, found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.